Valve has been working on Half-Life 2 a lot within the past few days for the upcoming anniversary update. They have updated the anniversary test depot over 5 times to different build IDs. We originally talked about this in August when the test depot first appeared, but something that went off the radar was that the test depot was only affecting Half-Life 2 app ID 220, which is the main Half-Life 2 game. This matters because when you look at Valve's more recent updates to this test depot that just happened in the past few days, all 4 of the recent change lists are now affecting 6 apps in total instead of just the one. Every version of Half-Life 2, the episodes, and Half-Life Source, not just app ID 220. This doesn't just automatically mean Valve is combining each of these games into one menu, but you can expect each of them to get affected by whatever this update includes. Previous updates for Half-Life 2 had times when Valve would include the same 6 apps and changes, but there were also times when it would have only included Half-Life 2 and its episodes. It just mattered what the update was for. Whatever Valve is planning is very clearly going to affect Half-Life 2, the episodes, Lost Coast, and Half-Life Source. When you go back 1 year to when Valve was testing their 25th anniversary update for Half-Life, the depots at the time only affected one app. This plays into the Gold Source engine, which received an update for the anniversary, which increased the engine limits and brought Steam Deck support. So it wouldn't be a surprise if this year we get Source engine updates. It's important to remember in 2013 with Steam Pipe, when Valve was updating the engine for their older games, Half-Life Source got worse with a bunch of bugs to the point Valve delisted the game from the Steam store. We can only hope this finally gets fixed if Valve is revisiting the Source Engine Half-Life games. The first Source Engine games are now 20 years old, so will Valve release a 20th anniversary update for the engine, just like they did for Gold Source with the 25th. A project very similar to what players expect for this anniversary update is the Half-Life 2 Remastered Collection. This is a fan-made project that still hasn't been released, but for the past few years, Philip Victor, the same creator of Half-Life 2 Update, has been working on the Remastered Collection. This remaster plans to bring Half-Life 2 to the CSGO branch, and it's also not just Half-Life 2, but the episodes included for a seamless experience. With very little news in recent months for this fan-made project, and the increase of rumors for Valve's Half-Life 2 anniversary update, players wonder if Valve might be doing something similar now. In terms of what to expect for this update, it's important to keep your hopes down so Valve can surprise us, even with the release date, as it may not come directly on the anniversary date. It could be a few days before or even afterwards. We can look at the 25th anniversary and see how Valve approached it by breaking it down into different categories. A Valve documentary talking about the development, bundled in exclusives, they added in new multiplayer maps, new graphic settings and extra support, a bunch of old and cut content was then added, plus other changes were included in the patch notes, and for a limited time, they even made Half-Life free to play. We can only hope the Half-Life 2 20th anniversary has a similar update with a new documentary and cut content that players have never seen. Now, you may have seen this recent countdown by Gabe Newell at PAX Australia, where he decided to not include 3. Of course, this is just a silly joke and not any hint for really anything, but it makes you think what will happen when Gabe is up there and finally announces it and decides to say 3. Regardless, if the codename HLX turns out to be Half-Life 3 or is just called Half-Life X, it is still planned to be a full-scale Half-Life game that is built not for VR. This doesn't mean that it won't have VR support, but Valve is focusing on the classic Half-Life experience this time, rather than what they did with Half-Life Alyx for VR. As well, now that Valve has a list of games using the Source 2 engine, they are a lot more comfortable than they were 11 years ago with their first Half-Life 3 project. In 2014, Valve paused Half-Life 3 and Left 4 Dead 3 to let Source 2 become more stable. Now that it's 10 years later, you can only hope that Valve is more comfortable with the Source 2 engine, which is where HLX comes in. Valve is now starting to test out AnimGraph 2 and Deadlock for specific animations. They are currently only testing a few at the moment, but you should expect AnimGraph 2 to be included in Half-Life 3. AnimGraph 2 will be a direct upgrade to the original AnimGraph Valve used for Half-Life Alyx and is currently in Counter-Strike 2. The current version of AnimGraph, when used, no longer has the game code directly telling the animation system which sequence to play. Instead, the game code provides the AnimGraph with commands and context about the game environment, and it's up to the logic within the graph to determine what animations to play and how to play them. This allows the game code to focus on higher level gameplay without having to micromanage animation, and allow animators to create and iterate on better character performances. So now with AnimGraph 2, this entire system will be updated. So even something like animations, even though both Half-Life Alyx and HLX will be using the Source 2 engine, HLX will have an updated animation system, setting them completely apart. You can assume this will follow for every other aspect of the game if Valve has waited 20 years for Half-Life 3. One thing I am hoping we see in either the Half-Life 2 Anniversary Update or Half-Life X is the Cremator, a cut enemy from both Half-Life 2 and Alyx, which was intended to be a janitor of sorts, cleaning up bodies by burning them. Valve liked the Cremator so much that they kept references to it in the game even though it got cut, and even tried to add it into Half-Life Alyx before cutting it once again, even though they made new artwork. This clearly shows that Valve likes the Cremator and has been trying to add it into the Half-Life storyline for over 20 years now, so we can only hope they finally do it with whatever they're planning next with the series. There's also a lot of other notable things that have been cut from the Half-Life games, but it really just depends on what direction Valve decides to take going forward. Will the Half-Life 2 Anniversary Update be dark and gritty like the beta? Will Half-Life X be a big focus on Zen? Let's find out when Valve reveals more information, so make sure you subscribe and like this video so you don't miss any news, as we are very close to this big update.